Hello, in this video we're going to take a peek at editing motion capture data with an IK rig in the graph editor. So this is a custom rig that I built, and I just baked the keys down from another file that's in the scene down to the controls. And so now what I'm going to do is simplify the curves, or simplify the keys. And this is going to substantially reduce my keyframe count while still maintaining a lot of the integrity of the animation. It holds it up pretty well. Much easier to edit fewer keys. Now that did introduce some gimbal lock where the hip is kind of rotating around there. So if I grab all of the keys, or the curves rather, and apply the Euler filter, that'll take care of that wacky lock. You can see the keys held up to the original data pretty well. Now here I'm going to go to the first frame, hold down the middle mouse button, and then slide to where I want to copy that frame to. So it's going to be right there at 134. So click on S. So now I can just delete the keys in between, and so I've copied from the first to a good way into the animation. No, I also could have scaled it if I wanted to keep some of the subtleties of the motion, but here I chose just to delete the keys. Now I'm going to be searching for where to put my next foot key. And I also wanted to raise the foot up a little bit so that character raising the foot and then lowering it, and it will just be a little more visible. Now here I'm going to go through and selectively blow away keys. Reselecting and excluding the translate Y so that I can keep the that peak I just put in. Just kind of testing how the foot's going to work, because it's going to go from a toe pivot to a heel pivot. And I'm going to try to do all this between two different keyframes. So I'm going to blow away a lot of data, and then I'll eventually go back and put as many keys as I need in. But just to keep the foot to look like it is not eye scanning. Now, since I have to kind of go from the toe to the heel, decided to add a locator, and I'm going to use that just for a guide for positioning. So that's where I want my foot to pivot from, the toe rather. So, you should really look at it from all sides, above, each side, just so you can kind of nail that position down. Again, this is kind of tricky because I'm pivoting on the ball of the foot then raising the ball of the foot and pivoting on the ankle to deliver that back kick. And so this is requiring quite a bit of just sort of looking at the placement and seeing, how I want to transition. There I've kind of got the pivot point on the toe nailed down. And then I just have to go down and nail the location for the heel. So I'm going to take the last frame where I want the data to line up. And so I copied it. I took it from the beginning and I copied it to the back, or in this case rather, it's going to be taking it from the back now and then copying it to the next key. And I realize I'm going to have to adjust the timing because there's too much settling time at the end of the animation, so scaling that in a little bit. And I'm not done fixing that foot, by the way. I'll still spend a little bit of time on it. Add another bar in there for the scaling. And now what I'm doing is taking the keys and I'm trying to snap them to whole key frames. When you scale your keys, they'll wind up like on 22.1 or 15.3, a decimal number. And you want your keys on a whole number. And there's a better way to do that. I'm going to illustrate it here in just a minute. So after scaling, I had keys to delete, so I went in and did that. After worrying about the placement, I'm coming back to fine-tune with the rotation. And due to the pole vectors not completely lining up, I decided to adjust the pole vectors and then readjust the, resaving the idle pose with the pose to shelf script. And I just delete the previous one. So I can save the pose both in FK mode or just a skeleton, and also with the controllers. Now I copied from the beginning to the end. I think I did it on both feet because I updated them. And that's causing gimbal lock. And so I'll be able to show you what that looks like here in just a moment. That's a very common problem that every 3D animator needs to understand. A little bit of confusion about keys there, so kind of rekey everything at that last frame. Just a little more tweak in there to get my first and last keys working. So establish the first, then copy to the end key. Now here I've definitely introduced gimbal lock. You can see it happening on the right ankle. So the best way to fix gimbal lock is, so there I'm deleting a few keys at the end, then I'm going to grab all of the curves and I'm going to run it through the Euler filter. So you can see the foot rotating around. You can see in the graph editor what that looks like. So I run the Euler filter and then that fixed the key there at the end from rotating around. So like I said, I've got that little movement at the end that I need to work on for that foot. So right now I'm just looking at the X and Z translation keys. Again, it's compounded by the switch from toe to heel, that pivot. Made a little adjustment there, one there. And it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be something that I can live with. There I'm setting the, changing the coordinates from world to local space on the controller. Do that by double-clicking the rotate icon over in the toolbar. Okay, so I hadn't previously deleted the rotations on the other foot. I just did that. So now I'm coming in to kind of lock down the character's right foot. And again, I'm going to grab that locator and move it over and use that for a reference point. And I can just blow away everything in between. And you put a key in between them if need be. So simplifying those keys, it helps so much. And not being afraid to get rid of motion capture data, particularly on the feet. You know, don't be bashful about that. Something you're always going to have to adjust when you're editing motion capture is the hips. So I need to make sure that the hips are not jerky when they make that transition between edits. So again, just a lot of deleting keys and going back and adding them where I need to. Now you don't want to blow away too many, particularly around your main keys, but just kind of systematically go through and see what you can delete in order to help smooth it out. Now I noticed at the end, the arm just moved really quick from the end of the kick back to the idle. So I had previously deleted some keys, but I actually have to delete quite a bit more. Now, arms are pretty easy. In this case, they are FK arms, and you're really only worried about arcs. So there the arm goes down just too quickly, so I just blast away those keys. Still a little jerky, probably get a couple more. I also see that the rotation of the spine had something to do with the arm coming down sort of jerky, so grabbed all the keys in the spine and blew away a bunch of keys there as well. Now I need to do some more timing, because part of motion capture, particularly for games, you've really got to make it snappy. And not just across the entire animation, but some places more than others. In this case, I'm going to be retiming the kick. I want the kick to be faster. So that move speeds up the kick, and then that speeds up the settle afterwards. And so I've scaled down once, and guess what? I'll still be scaling down as we near the end of the video. Now I'm just playing the animation, playing it for timing. Now here I'm going to go into Edit, and I'm going to snap the keys, because after scaling they go to a decimal value. Snapping keys will force them to the nearest whole number key. So previous parts of the video, it was sped up to help with the speed and overall narration. And these areas right here where I've done the timing, I've kept the speed at real time, just so you can see it a little better. You can see that arm is still coming down a little quickly. So again, there's nothing like blowing away keys to help out areas like that. So I'm going to do even some more timing and snapping, having played it back a few times. Put the anchor there just in front of the first set of keys so they stay put. And the initial response is just too slow. So that'll speed up just the initial engagement of the move. And I have to scale the rest of the animation accordingly. But so I'm just going in with the scale tool and deciding which areas need to be sped up individually. So using the scale tool, checking the timing. When I'm happy with it, I'll deselect and then snap the keys. All keys selected. And we're going to snap the keys. And you can see them snap. So here's even some more timing and snapping. So in motion capture editing, you want to make sure your feet don't slide. Adjusting that foot that went from the heel, the toe, pivoting on the toe, and then transitioning into pivoting on the heel. That took me a little bit of time. It looks much better now, I think. Another quick snap. Now there's other filters. I don't know when Maya put the Butterworth filter in, but that puts keys on every frame again. And it's sort of a smoothing filter. It came from Motion Builder. So I'm happy with the results. And so now I'm just going to go back in and simplify the keys again. Or simplify the curve. Now compare this to the original data. See, I sped it up by quite a bit. So now I'm going to bake simulation. I selected the skeleton and the hierarchy. I'm going to bake out all the keys on the skeleton. Always run an Euler filter after I bake. Then I can export just the skeleton itself as a clip. So there I'm taking it out of the hierarchy, getting rid of everything except for geometry, export it as an FBX clip, and then I'll also export this file as a working file. So thanks for watching. I hope that helps with motion capture editing.